Theo had kept his deep love for Isaiah a secret for years, especially dreading this day of his parents' anniversary celebration. But when he boldly stepped onto the stage holding Isaiah's hand for everyone to see, the entire banquet hall suddenly fell into a stunned silence. The guests, dressed in their finest clothes for the celebration, stared in disbelief at the unexpected scene unfolding before them. Theo's heart raced as he saw his father's face shift from confusion to pure rage in a matter of seconds. "Mom and Dad, I have something important to share with all of you today," Theo said into the microphone, his voice surprisingly calm. "This is Isaiah, the man I love and the one I want to spend the rest of my life with." Murmurs spread through the crowd like a wave as people tried to process the revelation about Theo's true identity. His mother covered her mouth with her hand, tears welling up in her eyes from the surprise and emotion of the moment. But his father, a retired police officer known for his strict views, pushed his chair back and stood up abruptly with clenched fists. "What kind of joke is this, Theo?" his father shouted, his voice booming across the room and causing more silence to fall. The tension in the air was thick as Theo held Isaiah's hand tighter for support during the public confrontation. Theo had grown up in a household where his father emphasized traditional values and often spoke against anything he saw as deviating from the norm. From a young age, Theo learned to hide parts of himself to avoid disappointing the man he looked up to so much. In high school, Theo dated girls to fit in with his father's expectations, but it never felt authentic to his true feelings. It was not until college that Theo began to accept his attraction to men and started exploring his identity in secret. He met Isaiah at a community fundraiser in Chicago, where Isaiah worked helping students as a dedicated counselor. Their connection was immediate and deep, built on shared values, laughter, and mutual understanding of life's challenges. For 2 years, they kept their relationship private from Theo's family to protect the fragile peace at home. Isaiah understood the fear and supported Theo through every step of deciding when to come out. The anniversary party had seemed like the perfect yet terrifying moment to finally be honest with his loved ones. As the initial shock subsided, some guests whispered among themselves while others looked away uncomfortably from the family drama. Theo and Isaiah stepped down from the stage together, facing the reality of what they had just done in front of everyone. His mother approached them first, pulling both into a warm embrace despite the chaos surrounding the revelation. She whispered to Theo that she had always suspected and was proud of him for being brave enough to speak up. However, his father had stormed out to the parking lot, refusing to participate in the rest of the celebration that night. The evening continued with forced smiles and awkward conversations as the family tried to salvage the special occasion. Theo felt a mix of relief and anxiety about the consequences of his bold action on this important day. Later, when the party ended, the real drama unfolded in the private family lounge, away from the public eyes. His father returned with a red face full of anger and began the intense confrontation that had been building for years. "You have embarrassed me and your mother in front of all our friends and family," his father said in a low, furious tone. "How could you choose this lifestyle and throw it in our faces on our anniversary?" Theo tried to stay composed as he explained his genuine love for Isaiah and how it was not a choice, but part of who he was. Isaiah stood quietly beside him, offering silent strength without interrupting the emotional exchange between father and son. The argument grew louder as his father listed all the reasons why he believed this was wrong for their family and society. He mentioned his own upbringing and how he had taught Theo to be a strong traditional man from childhood onward. Theo countered by sharing how suppressing his true self had caused him years of inner pain and loneliness before meeting Isaiah. The clash of their views created a deep rift that seemed impossible to bridge in that heated moment of conflict. This continued late into the night until Theo could no longer tolerate the harsh words directed at his relationship. He felt his chest tighten with every accusation, but he refused to back down from the truth he had finally spoken. Isaiah gently placed a hand on Theo's shoulder, reminding him they were in this together no matter the outcome. The father paced the room, his voice rising as he recalled old sermons and family rules he had always enforced strictly. Theo remembered those same rules from boyhood baseball games and Sunday dinners, where any softness was quickly corrected. Yet here he stood defending the love that had given him purpose and joy for the first time in his life. The confrontation stretched on as hours passed, and the once joyful anniversary night turned into a battlefield of words. Theo's mother tried to intervene, but her pleas fell on deaf ears amid the escalating emotions in the room. By the time the argument reached its peak, Theo knew the relationship with his father might never be the same again. After the words that cut so deeply that night. "If you choose him over your family, then you are no longer my son," his father declared with finality in his voice. The statement hung in the air like a heavy weight, crushing the last bit of hope Theo had held on to. Tears stung Theo's eyes, but he straightened his posture and looked his father directly in the face without flinching. "Then I choose my own happiness, Dad, because love is not something I can turn off to please you." Isaiah remained calm and respectful throughout, even as the father's anger turned toward him with pointed accusations. The two men left the lounge together, walking out into the cool night air of the Chicago suburbs, feeling both free and broken. The drive back to their small apartment was quiet at first as Theo processed the full impact of what had just happened. Isaiah drove with one hand on the wheel and the other gently resting on Theo's knee, offering silent comfort. They talked softly about their future plans once they reached home, discussing how to move forward despite the pain. Theo reflected on all the moments he had shared with his father growing up, from fishing trips to backyard barbecues. Those memories now felt tainted by the rejection that had exploded so publicly on what should have been a happy day. Isaiah shared stories of his own supportive family back in California to remind Theo he was not alone in this struggle. The next few days passed in a blur of phone calls from relatives who had witnessed the scene at the party. Some offered quiet support while others echoed the father's conservative views and urged Theo to reconsider his choices. Theo focused on his work as a graphic designer, throwing himself into projects to distract from the family fallout. Isaiah continued his counseling job at the high school, helping teenagers navigate their own identity questions with extra empathy. Together, they cooked simple meals in their cozy kitchen and took evening walks along the lakefront to clear their minds. The relationship between them grew even stronger through the shared adversity, proving the depth of their commitment. Weeks turned into a month, and Theo received a short text from his mother saying his father still refused to discuss the matter. The silence from the family home felt louder than any argument, and it weighed heavily on Theo's heart each day. He missed the casual Sunday calls and the smell of his mother's homemade apple pie during holiday gatherings. Isaiah encouraged Theo to give it time, suggesting that healing might come slowly if at all. One evening, Theo sat at his desk staring at an old photo of him and his father at a baseball game years ago. The image brought a wave of nostalgia, mixed with sadness for the bond that now seemed irreparably damaged. Isaiah joined him on the couch later, and they watched a light comedy movie to lift the heavy mood in the apartment. Their love provided the anchor Theo needed during this turbulent period of his life. Meanwhile, back at the family house, Theo's father sat alone in his study, replaying the anniversary night in his mind. He stared at family photos on the wall, including one of Theo as a proud graduate from college. Anger still simmered, but a small crack of doubt began to form as he considered the harsh words he had spoken. His wife tried to talk to him about forgiveness, but he shut down every conversation with a grunt and a wave of his hand. The father threw himself into yard work and community meetings to avoid facing the emptiness left by his son's absence. He told himself he had done the right thing by standing firm on his principles, yet sleep came harder each night. Unbeknownst to Theo, his father had begun to ask subtle questions to old friends about similar family situations. The answers he heard were mixed, and some stories of regret started to plant seeds of unease in his thoughts. Theo and Isaiah decided to take a short weekend trip to the countryside to recharge and plan their next steps together. They hiked through peaceful trails and talked about possibly moving to a new city for fresh opportunities. The idea of distance from the painful memories appealed to Theo as a way to protect his peace of mind. Isaiah supported the plan, fully believing their love could thrive anywhere as long as they stayed united. Upon returning home, Theo found a letter in the mailbox from his mother updating him on family news in careful language. She mentioned his father's recent doctor's visit for high blood pressure, but avoided any mention of reconciliation. Theo read the letter twice, feeling a pang of worry mixed with the resolve to live his truth openly now. Theo read the letter twice, feeling a pang of worry mixed with the resolve to live his truth openly now. Life continued with small joys like celebrating Isaiah's birthday with a quiet dinner and meaningful gifts. They decorated their apartment with new plants and photos of their happy moments to create a sense of home. Theo received a job offer in California that would allow them to relocate and start a new chapter away from the tension. The opportunity excited both men as it promised better weather, new friends, and space to heal from the family rift. They began packing boxes in the evenings, sorting through belongings, and reminiscing about their time in Chicago. One afternoon, Theo's phone rang with an unknown number, and he hesitated before answering the call from his mother. She sounded tired and said his father had suffered a mild heart scare that required a short hospital stay. The news hit Theo hard. Despite the ongoing silence, he still cared deeply about his father's well-being. He asked detailed questions and offered to send flowers, but his mother warned that a visit might not be welcome yet. Theo hung up feeling torn between his love for his parents and the need to protect his own emotional health. Isaiah listened patiently and suggested they delay the move if Theo needed more time to process the health update. That night, Theo wrote a long letter to his father expressing his unchanged love while explaining why he could not change himself. He described how Isaiah had helped him through dark times and how their relationship brought him true fulfillment. The letter ended with an open invitation for dialogue if his father ever felt ready to listen without judgment. Theo sealed the envelope and mailed it the next morning, hoping the words might bridge the growing gap. Weeks passed without a response, and the packing for California continued at a steady pace. Theo and Isaiah visited their favorite local spots one last time, saying goodbye to the city that had shaped their love. On the day of their flight, the apartment stood empty except for a few boxes ready for shipping. Theo glanced at his phone one final time before boarding, but there was still no message from his father. The plane took off, carrying them toward new beginnings in a sunny coastal town near San Francisco. They settled into a small house with a view of the hills and quickly found community among supportive neighbors. Isaiah started a new counseling position at a local school, while Theo launched a freelance design business from home. Their days filled with morning coffee on the patio, evening walks, and plans for a simple commitment ceremony. Back in Chicago, Theo's father finally received the letter and read it alone in his quiet study late one evening. The words pierced through his defenses, forcing him to confront the reality of what he had pushed away. For the first time, he allowed himself to cry as memories of Theo as a boy flooded his mind unfiltered. His wife found him there and held him as he admitted for the first time that his pride had cost him his son. The father began to research support groups for parents of gay children, though he kept the effort private for now. He visited the old baseball field where he and Theo once played and sat on the bleachers reflecting deeply. The health scare had shaken him enough to question whether his rigid views were worth losing family over. He picked up the phone several times to call Theo, but each attempt ended with him hanging up in hesitation. The move to California had created physical distance that mirrored the emotional chasm he had helped create. Theo and Isaiah thrived in their new life, hosting small gatherings and building a network of chosen family. Theo felt a sense of peace he had never known before, free from the constant fear of disappointing his father. Yet on quiet nights, he still wondered if his father would ever reach out or if the silence would remain permanent. Isaiah reminded him that healing could take many forms and that their love was the foundation they could always rely on. One day, a package arrived at their new home containing a simple note from Theo's mother and a family photo album. The album included pictures from Theo's childhood with captions added in his father's handwriting for the first time. Theo flipped through the pages with tears in his eyes, recognizing this as a small but significant gesture of regret. The twist came when he realized his father had included a recent photo of himself holding a pride flag pin in his lapel. It was not a full apology, but it signaled the beginning of a change no one had expected after the harsh rejection. It was not a full apology, but it signaled the beginning of a change no one had expected after the harsh rejection. Theo showed the album to Isaiah, and they sat together on the porch discussing what the gesture might mean for the future. The father back home had started attending quiet meetings where he listened to other parents share their stories. He learned that many had faced similar conflicts and found ways to rebuild bridges without losing their principles entirely. His own journey involved reading books and watching documentaries that challenged his long-held beliefs gently. Theo decided to send a short reply, thanking his mother for the album and expressing cautious hope for more communication. Life in California continued with Theo and Isaiah planning their commitment ceremony in a small garden setting. Friends from their new community gathered to celebrate the love that had survived family opposition and distance. Theo felt grateful for the healing he had found even as he carried the unresolved pain from his father's words. Months later, another letter arrived, this one directly from his father with handwriting that showed visible effort. The message admitted regret for the anniversary outburst and acknowledged that he missed his son more than he could express. It did not fully endorse the relationship yet, but it opened the door for possible conversations in the future. Theo read it aloud to Isaiah, feeling a mix of relief, sadness, and tentative optimism about what might come next. The father had lost the daily presence of his son, but gained a painful understanding of his own stubbornness. He now spent evenings looking at old videos and journaling thoughts he wished he had shared sooner. Theo and Isaiah built a stable life together, focusing on careers, community involvement, and their deepening bond. They hiked along coastal trails and volunteered at local youth centers where Isaiah's skills made a real difference. The ending brought a sense of quiet healing for Theo, as he accepted that some rifts take years to mend if ever. His father continued his slow transformation, attending family counseling sessions with his wife to process the loss. The two men remained apart geographically, but the lines of communication had started to reopen in small, careful ways. Theo no longer hid his identity and lived openly with pride in the person he had become. Isaiah stood by him as a constant partner, offering love that required no conditions or changes. The family story had shifted from sharp conflict to an open path, where regret met the possibility of redemption. Time would reveal whether full reconciliation was possible, but the first steps had been taken on both sides. Theo sometimes thought about the anniversary night and how one brave decision had altered the course of everything. He felt no shame in his choices, only gratitude for the love that had guided him through the storm. His father sat on the porch one evening, staring at the horizon and whispering a quiet apology to the empty space. The words carried across the miles and spirit, even if they had not yet been spoken directly to his son. In the end, both men had lost something precious, yet gained lessons about acceptance and the cost of silence. Theo and Isaiah watched the sunset together, hand in hand, knowing their future held promise regardless of the past. True or false, a parent's deep regret after rejecting their gay son can always lead to genuine healing if enough time passes.